All right, I think we're ready to roll.
You're listening to Words Like That with Cole Powell, a storytelling podcast.
All right, this is Words Like That. I'm Cole Powell. Special episode today. I'm going to be doing something I've never done on the podcast. I used to do this once a week on the Randomine Records YouTube channel for the reaction series, but I've never done this on the podcast. I hope to start doing this once a month. I'm going to be going through episodes of the podcast from various platforms, also some of the reaction videos I've done for the Randomine Records YouTube channel, and answering comments on camera. Some of these I've already responded to personally, but I felt like that it would warrant talking on camera and being a little bit more expansive in my explanation. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in here. This is for videos that have been done in the month of July, episodes of the podcast have been done in the month of July. First up, this is from my review of Horizon. This is from Jimmy Tronics 1. Have you considered the lack of turnout to the movie theaters may be because of the fallout of the way he, meaning Kevin Costner, left Yellowstone? In the end, he disappointed all of his fans, people who have followed that show for 5 years, and he did so he could make this movie. Yeah, I'd actually seen that floated on the internet before I did that review, and I thought about including that as I was trying to parse why the movie was flopping so hard at the box office, and that's what this comment is in reference to. And I didn't include it because I just don't think it's a valid hypothesis, because I don't see the numbers being there to have impacted the box office of this enough to make it a flop. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. If you look at the numbers of Yellowstone viewership, you've got probably, let's go on the high end, say 6 million. There are more people than this watching the last couple of seasons regularly, but let's just say 6 million diehard Yellowstone fans that never miss an episode. Okay, so if all 6 million of those fans were the type of people who would have gone to see Horizon if Kevin Costner hadn't left Yellowstone, at an average price of $10.48 a ticket for theater tickets right now, the film still would have only made, if you had 5 to 6 million people from that demographic going, the film still would have only made 60 whatever to 70 whatever million in theaters off the entirety of its run from that Yellowstone fan base. And yeah, that would have definitely helped the box office some, but it still wouldn't have been enough for Horizon to be a hit. It still would have been considered a flop. There still would have been loss, I believe, after marketing costs come out, production costs, marketing costs comes out. Regardless, I just don't think that all of those people, all of the diehard Yellowstone watchers, are really following the behind the scenes that closely to realize the fallout that's going on between Kevin Costner and the show and Tye Sheridan, the series creator. And for those that are following, not all of them have anything against Kevin Costner in the situation. And for those that do, not all of those people would just boycott Horizon because they're not happy that Kevin Costner left Yellowstone. I've seen as many comments as I've seen online with people suggesting that Horizon's flopping because you got a boycott from Yellowstone fans that are mad. You can go on Reddit right now. I saw a whole thread on Reddit of Yellowstone fans who see Costner's departure as Tye Sheridan's fault, because Kevin he was committed to Yellowstone. That was his priority, but he also wanted to make this movie, and he was trying to work both. He even said that Horizon that Yellowstone was his priority over Horizon, but it went on so long with Tye Sheridan getting everything together with production and maybe some contract negotiations that Kevin Costner had to move on if he wanted to get this other project done. So you've got a demographic of people who are following this closely, a demographic of Yellowstone fans who are following the behind the scenes this closely, who have nothing against Kevin Costner. So the question becomes, do you have enough diehard Yellowstone fans who are aware of what's going on behind the scenes, who blame Kevin Costner, whose reaction to blaming Kevin Costner is, oh man, we like Kevin so much on this show, but now that he's leaving to go make this other thing, we're so mad and we're going to boycott this other thing? Do you have enough of those people in play to have made this movie tank? And you don't. This movie, outside of the Yellowstone fan base, even if every single person that's ever watched an episode of Yellowstone went to see this movie, it still would have had to have brought in interest from Western fans who don't follow Yellowstone, and also some general audiences. And the movie did not. And in my review, that's what I was trying to figure out. What is the one or two things that's kind of threads that play across all demographics that maybe under ordinary circumstances would have gone to see this movie, but now don't. And I just don't see the Yellowstone fallout being one of those factors. All right, so this next question here is from the same video. The comments like these crack me up. All right. Dude, Yellowstone isn't a Western. It's a modern-day drama set in a state that has cowboy ranch themes. This movie is a Western all the way, talking about Horizon. And Yellowstone actually is a Western. It is what's called a neo-Western, neo meaning new, and the connotation of that phrase means that it has the Western tropes and archetypes and other elements of Western, but it's not set in the 19th century in the actual Western period. But the period doesn't necessarily determine the genre. And some other examples of neo-Westerns in terms of movies, not series, but movies: No Country for Old Men, Hell or High Water, even Logan. I talked about this recently in an X-Men video I did. And even before Logan, The Wolverine, which was directed by James Mangold, who did both Wolverine and Logan, had a lot of Western themes. James Mangold talked about this specifically, kind of leaning into some Clint Eastwood vibes in that movie. And I remember coming out of the theater, I saw it with a good friend of mine, and I mentioned something about that I really liked some of the Western motif going on in that movie. And my buddy was like, What are you talking about? What does this have to do with Western? And I tried to start explaining it to him, and he just made fun of me like I didn't know what I was talking about. But anyway, yeah, Yellowstone is a Western. It's a neo-Western. And as far as it being a modern drama, a drama set on a ranch, and you could even say a family drama set on a ranch, that's the same type of plot that Bonanza had and that The Big Valley had as TV Westerns in the 60s. But nobody batted an eye because they were actually set in the 19th century. But because this one isn't set in the 19th century, people are confused. And I also had a similar comment about genre that I saw this morning. I didn't include it here, but it was on the Bob Dylan trailer reaction that we did. And it was somebody saying something that this wasn't actually a biography, which I'd refer to it as a biography or biopic, that it was just a small part of Dylan's life, and that the amount of somebody's life used in a work doesn't mean that the work is not a biography. Even though they're just using a small pinch, it's biography. So seems to be some confusion about what actually constitutes different genres in media. So anyway, moving on here. This is from a video I did about, in an episode of the podcast, actually, I did about infringement and fair use on YouTube, specifically about the types of reaction videos that I do on the Randomine Records channel. And this comment comes from one of our longtime viewers. This is Grace Parker. And Grace says, "Hi, Cole. I'm sick to death that you are given such obvious grief over what shouldn't be happening. I watch a massive amount of YouTube, and most of the content is restorations, conversations, and the like. I may listen to music, but when it comes to reaction channels, very few get the view from me. You are an exception, have been for a long time. Thank you, Grace. I appreciate that. However, recently I picked up another reactor and noticed that when he just shows his reactions or live streams them, he blurs the video to avoid copyright infringement. Now, this doesn't always get us where we would prefer to be as the watcher, but we can usually go and see the video ourselves without further issue. I just want to say also that you are the only channel that I have seen in 5 years that has this issue, so you are right when you say something has to give. Realizing that you don't have unlimited time to just sit on YouTube, I would encourage you to check out other reactor channels just to see if you get the same sense that I do. I think you are being targeted unfairly. Hope to see more of you soon. EOVC, which means End of Video Club. That's from back in the day. If you stayed to the end of the video on these kinds of videos where I'm answering comments, you were in a special club. Grace, I appreciate this comment. And as far as, first of all, I tried to argue on that video that you were commenting on here. I'm not sure if I did it well, but before I started doing reaction videos, I had watched many different reactors react to songs that I grew up with, like classic rock and oldies. That's the kind of music I listen to. Every now and then I'd watch a reaction on a song I didn't know or an artist I didn't know, but usually it was just, I was checking out reactions to songs I already knew. I don't do a lot of that anymore because A, I don't have a lot of time, and B, once I started doing my own reactions, for me, when I'm doing something, I'm less inclined to watch somebody else do it. So, every reactor, I take that back, every person that posts a video on YouTube that uses copyrighted material that's in YouTube's database, every single channel and every single video gets an automatic copyright claim post on video. It's not just us. The difference, and this is what I was trying to articulate in the podcast episode that I did on this, the difference is my perspective on what that means for fair use and infringement is different than any other reactor I've seen. And because my perspective is different on it, we react differently when we get a copyright claim on the video. As far as you were talking about, you picked up another reactor and he's blurring the screen. On the live streams, I know why he's doing that, because live streams are a bit different than individual. We don't do live streams because, first of all, I don't know if I have the time, and I certainly don't have the internet capability to do that right now. But on live streams, if YouTube's algorithm detects a copyrighted material going on in the live stream, they can shut the live stream down. So that's a little bit different deal with trying to navigate the live stream. As far as doing that for these kinds of videos that I put up, reaction videos that I put up that have been produced, edited, and then uploaded, I'm never going to blur the screen like that. Like, if it comes to the point where I can't get a reaction video up with showing a shrunk down version of whatever song or trailer that I'm reacting to, I would probably just quit, because that's just ridiculous. I think my contrarian nature would overcome at that moment, be like, oh, okay, you're gonna make me do this? No, I'm done. It's just ridiculous since we believe that these are totally legal reaction videos that we should be able to put up with no issues. That would be absolutely ridiculous. And as you mentioned, it would be totally unfair, or at least inconvenient for the watcher, and kind of defeat the purpose of the reaction video. But I hope that clarifies what I was trying to say in that video, that it's not that nobody else is having these issues. It's that I look at them differently, because I feel like when a copyright claim is put on one of our videos that we think is legal and should be fair use with no issue, if I don't fight that, if I don't dispute that, and I just leave the video up out there, then I'm implicitly agreeing that I did something illegal. And I'm not I'm not going to put myself in that position. And unless something happens that changes my perspective on it, or something happens with law or with YouTube policy to change how that works behind the scenes, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. All right, up next, this is from Patreon. This is one of our really good patrons. This is Barry Ryder commenting on my reaction to Bruce Springsteen, the No Nukes concert, 1979. And Barry says, great reaction. These songs were just meant to be done live. Gary U.S. Bond's Quarter to Three was the song to end it before Rave On. Remember, this was 45 years ago. Bruce was only 4 albums into his catalog, and E Street Band wasn't far from their barroom band stage. And while they were technically oldies, most of those covers were less than 20 years old at the time. Devil with a Blue Dress On was from 1967. So basically, ending a concert today with Somebody That I Used to Know by Gautier or Stronger by Kelly Clarkson. Thanks again. This was fun to watch. Thank you, Barry. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate this comment because I'd said in that reaction, this is what Barry's referring to, that Bruce comes out and he does all these quote-unquote oldies, which I love. It's the stuff I grew up on, but I grew up on that stuff in the 90s. And even though I knew this was 1979 and I knew when those songs came out, there was a disconnect in my mind that when Bruce is doing these, they're not actually oldies. And when Barry brought this up, I realized, that's a great point, because in the 2010s, when I was playing 4-hour shows of mostly cover songs, most of the covers that we were doing were from the 90s and 2000s, and nobody thought anything about them. Nobody even thought of them really as old songs. I certainly didn't, because that was that was during my era. So, great point, Barry. I appreciate you bringing that up. All right, up next, this one was on the Wolverine X-Men movies ranked. That was one of my favorite videos we've done. This is from BossFan49. Great viewer, great patron. And BossFan says, awesome job on the video, by the way. Analysis, writing, editing. On a side note, between the Deadpool promos and the relentless Mint Mobile ads on YouTube, I'm getting pretty sick of seeing Ryan Reynolds. Yeah. So on that last point, the Deadpool promos and Mint Mobile, there's a lot of people I know, this has been going back like 10 years, that get sick of Ryan Reynolds. I don't have that issue. I think he's really funny, even though I'm not a huge Deadpool fan, because I'm not a big R-rated raunchy comedy type guy or gratuitous violence type guy, but I think Ryan Reynolds is incredibly funny. And I actually had not seen a Mint Mobile ad this year until yesterday, after I'd seen this comment, which was kind of funny. And I've actually been seeking out videos of Ryan and Hugh promoting Deadpool. So I get it. I know that's the thing that people get tired of seeing that. But so far, I haven't reached that point. I have not reached Ryan Reynolds' saturation point yet. But on the compliment at the beginning of this comment, I appreciate that, Boss Fan. We're trying to get a little bit more produced here on the content we make, particularly shows like this, the podcast. I'm trying to get this studio, which right now, the angle I'm at, we've got the old shelf back behind us. It's kind of junky. It's not really at a great angle. But I'm hoping to get this thing a little bit more conducive to aesthetically pleasing, to an aesthetically pleasing state, to do the reaction videos, to do the podcast. And I'm hoping we can upgrade cameras soon, get some better lighting in here. Our consultant producer, Kyle Graves, has been on me for basically since I started to get better lighting in this place. And I hope to get him in here and maybe get this place looking better and get some better lighting, better camera. And Boss Fan, I think you also had a comment earlier whenever we first introduced the new intro to the podcast, and you complimented us on that. I appreciate that. I don't know if you're the only person to notice that, but I know you're the only person I saw that mentioned that, so I appreciate that so much. I'm glad to see that some of the work we're trying to do here to make content better that we're putting out on the internet is being noticed. This next one is on the Home Free So Long Dixie reaction that I did. And this is from another great viewer. This is Brenda Sorensen. And Brenda says, in my opinion, Dixie in this case can stand for any time or place. We are products of our raising, but we can learn from the mistakes of the past and do better. It's an ode to be proud of the good and to walk away from the bad. I have yet to find anything questionable about the lyrics other than the hot topic button word Dixie. Yeah, Brenda, I totally agree. And the song she's talking about, Home Free Dixie, it was specifically written by a couple of the Southern origin members of Home Free, and I'm from the South. And I was talking about how I got the song and how good the songwriting was. And to Brenda's point here, it doesn't have to be quote-unquote Dixie. It doesn't have to be quote-unquote the South. We should all, no matter where we're from, learn from the past, take the good, leave the bad, just like Brenda said here. Yeah, great comment, Brenda. We had a lot of great comments on that video, too. I felt like I had to pick one. This is the one I picked. So thank y'all for all the feedback on that video. All right, this one is from the podcast episode we did on the Beatles, Bob Dylan, and Bruce, all getting biopics. And this is from Shadowcut Films. When I first saw this comment, I thought it was going to be a smart aleck comment, because usually whenever a comment starts out, congratulations, a lot of times it's somebody being a smart aleck, you're being sarcastic, passive aggressive, insulting me or insulting the video, whatever. But it ended up being a sincere comment. So here we go. This is from Shadowcut Films. And Shadowcut Films says, congratulations on being the only reactor I could find that knows anything about Bob Dylan and also knows how to pronounce Chalamet and biopic correctly. Thanks. Thank you, Shadowcut Films. And I actually looked at the channel, and this is a YouTube channel that actually has content out there, which is unusual. Most comments that we get are just from users who don't produce content. So I always like to see other content creators watching our stuff, interacting with it in a positive way. So I appreciate that. And to be charitable to my fellow reactors out there, most, not all, but most reactors are just regular folks. They don't work in the entertainment industry. So I get, like, if you've got a Zoomer or a millennial out there that's just a music fan that grew up with their era of music or listen to just one particular genre like modern pop or rap or even country or even rock or whatever, and they're checking out this Bob Dylan trailer. Yeah, I get them not knowing who Bob Dylan is. It's sad. I wish it wasn't the case. I wish it weren't the case. And same thing with biopic. I can see people seeing that word and pronouncing it biopic. I actually was watching something the other day. Somebody did say biopic, and I was like, yeah, that's not how that goes. But I get it. But if you're not somebody like me who has been obsessed with film for my entire life and spent entire summers where every spare moment I was listening to DVD commentary from the directors or writers, actors, whatever, and watching the behind-the-scenes special features and learning some of these terminologies, genre terminologies and technical terminologies, I can get you not knowing how to pronounce that. As for Chalamet, it's a French word, and I actually have 2 years of high school French, although I didn't really put any effort into the courses and don't really remember how to speak a word of it, but Chalamet is pretty easy, and it's also, his first name is, I believe it's Timothée. I think it's actually Timothée, I think is how you actually pronounce his first name, but the anglicized English version of that is just straight up Timothy, and I actually saw an interview where Timothée Chalamet was saying that he accepts that English pronunciation. All right, up next, this is going to be our last one on this video. This is actually an email, and let me check to see real quick. I'd actually asked this commenter for permission to include. I haven't gotten a response back on this. So this is an email we got from James Caruso. He included an original photo with this that I'd like to share on the show. And I emailed him back asking for permission this morning before we shot this. I haven't received it back. If I receive it back before we get this thing edited and uploaded, I'll try to include that at the end. But James Caruso says, this trailer teaser is amazing. This is, again, the Bob Dylan, Timothée Chalamet film. Bob Dylan stayed at the Viking Motel in Newport, Rhode Island, and played the electric guitar for the first time at the Newport, Rhode Island Folk Festival in 1965. They transformed the Victoria Motel that's in Cape May into the Viking Motel. They filmed for about 2 weeks. They made everything look like 1965. The cars, the storefronts, Newport, Rhode Island Folk Festival banners, and so much more. It was really cool. They did quite a bit of filming at the motel, by the pool, and a lot around town. On his motorcycle, I was able to get some aerial photos of everything. I'll send a few. Definitely can't wait to see the movie. James, I appreciate this email so much, and also the photos that went with this. I hope we can include this in the episode, because it's really great shots. And I, too, am super excited for this movie. I said that on the episode that James was sending us an email on. Huge Bob Dylan fan. I'm actually a huge Timothy Chalamet fan. I've seen him in several movies at this point. Was not wild about the new version of Little Women that he was in, but he did a good job. I did like both his performance and the movies themselves, Dune Part 1 and 2. Also Wonka, which I wasn't expecting to like, but it was pretty good. This is directed by James Mangold, who did Walk the Line, one of my favorite music history films, musical biopics. So yeah, I am absolutely stoked for this. And that's going to wrap up this episode of Words Like That, answering comments. We're going to have some more content coming out as long as disaster doesn't strike. The last time I said that a few months ago, disaster struck over and over and over again and delayed a lot of production here, so we're hoping that doesn't happen again. But subscribe to the Randomine Records YouTube channel for full episodes of the podcast and additional content. You can also support us on Patreon. We have tiers starting at $1 a month. That'll get you early access to a lot of our content, and all the way up to $3. $3 still not a lot. $3 gets you access to everything that we post on Patreon. You can follow us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. And if you like the Words Like That podcast, if you like what you've heard so far on this, give us a rating on platforms that allow that, like Apple. We really would appreciate it. We're trying to beef this thing up. It's gaining some traction, finally, and I really enjoy doing this, and I could see this being maybe a long-term gig in the future, so all your support will help immensely. And on our next set of content, if you check that out and you comment on it on YouTube, or I also put a lot of adapted transcripts of these on my website, colepowell.net. And there's a comment section on there. You can comment directly on the article version of these episodes and some of these segments. And if we like your comments on YouTube or Patreon or my website or wherever there's comments, or you send us an email, I hope we're going to be doing this once a month. We'll put them on the episode, read them on air. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, be on the lookout and give us your thoughts on our content. We'll see you next time.
Can't have no words like that. Theme Words Like That by Cole Powell. Lead in by Ryan Purser. From Wicked Woman by Four Way Stop. Original cover photo by Kelly Bagwell. Recorded at Randomine Records. Section 107 of U.S. copyright law allows for the fair use of copyrighted material for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, parody, or research.